Hello, my lovely anatomists. Michelle Glass here, and thank you for joining me for another respiratory system video. I thought we would start by pulling in this model here. So we were looking at this model in our previous video. Remember, we were looking at the air traveling in the nasal cavity and then into the nasopharynx, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx. From there, we see that the air travels into the trachea, and the top portion of the trachea has the structure called the larynx. The larynx is commonly referred to as the voice box, but remember, we're anatomists, so we will be using the technical terminology larynx. Larynx is the top of the trachea. The trachea breaks down into smaller and smaller tubes called bronchi, continuing into an even smaller type of tube called a bronchiole, ending in what's called an alveolar sac. And that whole bronchial tree and alveolar sacs are part of the organ that we call the lung. So that's where we're heading with this video. But let's start by looking at that larynx a little bit more up close. All right, so here we are looking at a zoomed in larynx, and we can see right here an old friend from our study of the skeleton. This is that bone called the hyoid. So the hyoid is not technically part of the larynx, but it is going to have an important muscle attachment here, and we're talking about like way up in this spot there. This large, super obvious cartilage for the larynx is called the thyroid cartilage, and it's named thyroid not because of how close it is to the thyroid gland, but because it looks very much like the thyroid gland, if you remember that. Now we have the thyroid cartilage kind of making this prominent line, and that prominent line here is called the laryngeal prominence, the laryngeal prominence. Now, individuals who have a lot of testosterone will make all of their ligaments and vocal cords, I shouldn't have said the word ligament, all of their cartilages and vocal cords will thicken and lengthen under the influence of testosterone, and those influences then create a deeper sounding voice, and that influence of testosterone would make that laryngeal prominence even more prominent because of the thickening of the cartilage. So we do see testosterone making the laryngeal prominence a little bit thicker, and so that space there is commonly referred to as the Adam's apple. The larynx, remember, is the top of the trachea. Trachea is what we think of commonly as the windpipe, right? And we're looking here, of course, at the anterior view. So let's rotate the model around so that we can take a look at the posterior view. Now what we're going to see here, I'm going to actually show you now the superficial view, the superior view. If I open this up, that opening is called the glottis. So the glottis is actually just the top opening of the trachea. This tissue right here can move over top and protect that opening. So this is called the epiglottis. Epi is above or upon. What we're looking at with this kind of string, the string would be the vocal folds, which can commonly be referred to as vocal cords. What looks like kind of this cloth material, that would be referred to as the vestibular fold. These cartilages that I'm moving around here, you have this cartilage that looks kind of like a claw. So that kind of claw-shaped cartilage is called the corniculate cartilage. Corniculate cartilage. So corniculate as in like cornu, like a horn. This portion of the cartilage right here is called arytenoid cartilage. And then you have this cartilage right here. This cartilage, this end of the cartilage right here is going to be called cuneiform cartilage. So we have the corniculate cartilage, the arytenoid cartilage here, and then the cuneiform cartilage here. And then these would be the, let me get that pointer. These would be the vocal folds or vocal cords, and then this soft, papery, cloth-like material that we see here is representing the vestibular folds. So that is our larynx. All right, y'all, so we were just looking at the larynx in that close-up view. Remember, we have the hyoid bone up here. We have the thyroid cartilage here, which is named because it looks like the thyroid gland, which is shown in half. We can see that kind of point to that thyroid cartilage is called the laryngeal prominence. And then we see that the larynx is the top of the trachea. So this is the trachea here. Now notice you have these C-shaped cartilages, so shaped like a C, meaning when we look on this side here, it's not a complete circle. The C-shaped cartilage is important because it helps to always hold that trachea open. At the base right here, where you see this branching, we call that base right there the carina. From there, we see the left and the right main bronchi. So bronchi is the plural word, bronchus would be singular. So here would be the main bronchi. Okay. Now I know this is left in part because I'm holding it the way that it would be in my body, but I also know that this is left because the left lung has 2 lobes in the left lung, and so the left side has 2 what are called lobar bronchi. 2 lobar bronchi. And then the right side, the right lung has 3 lobes, and so the right side has 3 lobar bronchi. So we see them here, here, and here. Now notice we have this C-shaped cartilage at the trachea, and as we're getting smaller and smaller, the cartilage begins to change so that as we're getting into the lobar bronchi and what we're going to call in a minute segmental bronchi, we're getting more like cartilaginous plates. But again, these airways are held open by the cartilage. What we can see as these colored pieces are what we call the segmental bronchi. Okay. So this then is our trachea, our larynx, trachea, and our bronchial tree. That's all we can see from these models. So stay tuned for our next video looking at the lungs. And as always, take care of yourselves and each other.